This year, 77. Oh, see, and they're going at it. Oh, yeah. Howard and Guard are not happy right now as the two of them continue to have words.
Hands on the floor. Two really good coaches. Juwan got the better of it today.
Welcome in
Thanks to
on this Monday afternoon, everybody. It's Afternoon Live. Dennis Fithian with you here, kicking off this week. And yeah, man, yesterday they were tipping it off in Madison, but nobody talking about it.
And thanks to Dimitri
Trice, everybody talking about the end of the game. There's Juwan Howard, Greg Guard in happier times, talking with each other after previous games. Little fist bump, pat on the back.
And thanks to Dimitri Trice
and handshakes. Handshake line yesterday has been discussed, and we're going to discuss it here, talking about it over the next few minutes. If you're a first timer, welcome in. We're here every day at 1 o'clock, the Maize and Blue Review, and it's great to be here with you. And the events of yesterday's game, got everybody all fired up. It's national news, and from that standpoint, there's a lot of thought, there's no bad publicity. Well, Michigan's getting a lot of publicity here, but let's get into it. Let's talk about it. If you have any comments and you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, or Facebook, or anywhere else, and you want to go ahead and leave a message, I'll read those as the show goes on. I'll take them as they come. That is the topic today: Juwan Howard and what happened after the game against Wisconsin yesterday. The first thing is, you have to answer the question yourself, and I'll ask it and I'll answer it. Should Juwan Howard be fired? Should he be fired for what happened yesterday in Madison? I say no. I don't think it's out of line to talk about it. I know Josh Handshake, our publisher at the Maize and Blue Review, I just read
and thanks to
his
Dimitri Trice and company,
giving his thoughts on the Howard situation. He called it ridiculous, thinking that Juwan Howard should get fired, and I don't know, ridiculous. I would put it over the top. So a little, I don't agree with the word ridiculous. I think it's fair to talk about fair because you've got a pattern, and at least inside of a year, you have last year's Maryland game. And, a lot of different ways to look at it. But, last year, Michigan and Juwan Howard got lucky. Juwan Howard, I had never seen a coach go, tearing around the floor, getting held back, and having people really restrain him from going after another coach. That's what happened just last year in the Big Ten tournament. Howard and Michigan were lucky there. Not so lucky yesterday from what happened. And so when you have two unprecedented circumstances and then you had what happened yesterday, at least discussing the part about, this could cost you your job. I say it damn near did or damn near will, but, it's I think – and I know a lot of Michigan fans watching this are rolling their eyes. Or what about Wisconsin? I get all that. And there's some fair points to be made, on that side. But for me, I don't think that Juwan Howard should be fired.
And thanks to Dimitri Trice and company.
I do think this is, I don't know, 2 strikes against him. I don't know how you put it in business parlance. He's got something in his file.
And thanks to Dimitri Trice and
that they could use, if there was another instance like this, yeah, I think that, would be fair. Now, the second part, and everybody can have an opinion on this, is just how long should this forthcoming suspension be? And it's a good question. We know that the rules of the Big Ten that they can only max suspend 2 games and levy a $10,000 fine. I think that will happen.
And thanks to
from the Big
Dimitri
Ten. It could happen
Trice
right now. It could happen later on today. I'm expecting that to happen. Now, there's a thought that, Michigan could get out in front of this and, make their own suspension, and then the Big Ten could look at it if it was over 2. Michigan just said 2 games. The Big Ten said 2. That'd be it. And then Juwan Howard would be back on March 1st for the Michigan State game. Michigan has their next 4 games at home. I think Michigan's going to wait and see what the Big Ten does. That's what I would do. I mean, I get being proactive here, but, on Michigan side, looking over at Wisconsin, there's some responsibility from Wisconsin and all that. Okay, I think, seeing if there's anything that happens to Wisconsin or anything that Wisconsin does, I think is appropriate in this situation. But, Trey, I want to be clear, and I'll get to, the part about, Wisconsin, but, what's Michigan's job here in Ward Manual? Is to try to send a message? Juwan Howard absolutely unacceptable, and you're going to be suspended for the rest of the year. Now, yesterday I'm on after every Michigan basketball game, and I came on and probably about 5 minutes into the broadcast, I said, Juwan Howard should be suspended for the rest of the year. I was say that my emotions were running hot. I was running hot, and I said that. And if Ward Manual came out after the Big Ten suspends Howard for 2 games, and Ward Manual came out and said, Juwan Howard's done for the rest of the season, I can't criticize Ward Manual for that. In fact, I think there's a part of me that would applaud Ward Manual for that, because I think you're talking about the rest of the season. Of course, that means the Big Ten tournament. That means if Michigan's in any postseason tournament, that would be, to me, on the extreme side. And you can say there's demands, that. And I also think that's an understandable position. But, and I did say that myself yesterday. However, if you're Ward Manual, what's your job? Run the athletic department. Is it to protect Michigan? Is it to protect your brand? Are you part of running a business? I think all of those things are true. So if you are Ward Manual, does it hurt Michigan? Let's say you do just suspend them for the rest of the regular season games. They've got 5 more games. Punitive. It might not be the measure you want. You might want the whole thing. Heck, like I said, you might want them fired. But let's just, we'll say 5 games. And it's 5 games is 5 games. It's more than double of what the conference can do. And I would say that that would be justified. But who are you hurting? You're sending a message to Juwan Howard. You're saying, "Hey, Michigan, you know what? We're really serious about this." But what happens over the 5 games is that this is something where you look at it and you say, "Wow, man, Michigan, you're hurting yourself. You are hurting the Michigan basketball program if you're Ward Manual, and you suspend him for 5 games or for the entire season. You're hurting your own business."
And thanks to Dimitri
now, you could say, but you got to be a leader. You got to really make sure you're sending a point, making a point. I can understand you saying that. I don't think that Ward Manual, when it comes down to, hey, let's make a point and show everybody just how serious we are. Let's hurt ourselves. Let's go above and beyond, and let's make a point with Juwan Howard or double of what the Big Ten is, because we really want to make a point here. But you're hurting Michigan. The longer you're hurting Michigan basketball, can you make a point that, hey, maybe Phil Martelli, these guys really rally the troops, and who really cares what other everybody else is saying? Juwan will be back, and he's got to take his medicine here, Michigan basketball.
And thanks to Dimitri Trice.
I think it's going to depend on actually how the rest of the season plays out. For that particular narrative, that Michigan basketball will be fine. But just as I take a look at it, and if I was sitting in Ward Manual's offering him some suggestions here, I'd say, Ward, what's going to happen is, all these games are televised. The number one story is going to be Michigan's without Juwan Howard. Michigan suspends Juwan Howard. Here's the video that we're going to run now the 100th time. Here's every analyst that's going to weigh in on it. Whoever's covering back in the studio, they're going to have their, they're saying it. And we get
thanks to
the Rutgers
Trice
game, and then the Illinois game coming up on Sunday. What do we got? Wednesday, Sunday games this week. Those games are going to be That's what it's going to be.
Thanks to
It's Juwan
Demetric
Howard.
Trice
And
and
the suspension, if it goes the whole year, it's going to be Juwan Howard, Michigan basketball. And, if that remains the story, let's just say it's 2 games and Juwan Howard's back for the Michigan State game.
Demetric Trice
and Michigan State game. But, by the time they then play Iowa in March and you got the tournament around and he's back for his second game, is it still become this, talking point of, Juwan Howard, he was able to, escape, a long suspension? I think it dies down. So the short abbreviated projection here for me is that I don't think, Ward Manuel is going to go over the top on this to send a message. I think he's going to take what the Big Ten serves up, the 2-game suspension, and he might add a game. And you know what? That would be my recommendation. I know I said yesterday, I think Juwan Howard is deserving of being suspended for the rest of the season. However, you're in the business of protecting Michigan basketball. Doesn't matter, the rivals. Oh yeah, you're soft.
Thanks to Demetric Trice and company.
What's best for Michigan and what's best for the Michigan basketball program? Is it acing the coach out for the rest of the year? You might feel like that, but really, it's not in the best interest of Michigan basketball to have Juwan Howard out. I don't know if you're suspended. Are you able to contact any of the the current team or any of your recruits or any of your potential recruits?
And thanks to Demetric
Trice
and company.
So going, for the rest of the year, while a fair and the punishment would fit the crime.
Thanks to Demetric Trice and company.
If you're Michigan and you're the one that's after 2 games, there's no reason. I mean, you can make a case you just accept the Big Ten when they throw their 2 games and say, hey, that's it. We've had our
and thanks to Demetric
we've had our talk
and company.
with Juwan Howard. It's unacceptable. Moving forward, we're not standing for any of this. You want to put a zero tolerance. I don't know if you put a, you come out and say this is just unacceptable. You can't have any more, shenanigans, anything like this out on the floor, or he's going to be done. What's the? I'm going to write a strongly worded letter.
And thanks to Demetric Trice and company.
Weatherman, Will Ferrell. Yeah, I think that's where it's from. So that's a lot. So I don't think Juwan Howard should be fired, and I think the suspension. I don't think Ward Manuel is going to suspend him for the rest of the year. Like I said, he could, and I think he could do that. But if it was me and I was advising Ward Manuel, I'd say, hey, you know what, Ward? How about you take 2 games for the Big Ten
Trice and company.
That's what I would say. What to do for Juwan Howard when it comes down to it. Now that's me. I don't know what you think. Oh, somebody's talking about I've got audio playing over and over again. You know what? I do appreciate that. I could not hear that myself, so let me get rid of that. That's probably not something that you like. Thanks so much, James. I do appreciate that. And I will I'll send that over to our engineer and ask why that was happening. They couldn't hear it either. All right. So it should just be me now. I appreciate that. So if you're still hanging in here after all of that, yeah. What you had the constant loop of Juwan Howard at the end of the game. There we go. Yeah, James, I stopped it. I exited out. I knew that could have been a problem, except I had everything on mute and then I couldn't hear it. So I thought I'd be good. Thanks. I appreciate that. Michael, Juwan Howard, 2 games and a fine. 2 games and a fine is what the Big Ten is going to levy. They can go a max 2 games and $10,000. So you saying, Michael, that accept what the Big Ten is going to do and move on. You know what? I think that's not the extreme case, but it gets back to, again, your Ward Manuel. Look, we're not here to, be overly punitive or even be punitive with our head coach. We have rules. Here's what they are. The Big Ten, we are accepting of their suspension of the 2 games and the fine. And, Juwan Howard will be back for the Michigan State game. I could see that happening. I understand why that would happen. And you know what? I wouldn't be critical of Ward Manuel for doing that. Now, I think in this case, again, this would be my suggestion to Ward. Hey, go with what the Big Ten has, and then put another game on top of it to say, hey, you know what? Look at this is our biggest rival, a game that we have to have. You know, you may not say they have to have it. For me, you know, going 0-2 against Michigan State and, you know, being on the bubble in a home game, it'd be pretty important. But yeah, not having Juwan Howard for that would be, that would send a message. Might not be the message that you're looking for. And you know this, that like any message you send is going to tick people off. And again, these are the things that Ward Manuel is considering. People are suggesting things to him, say, hey, Ward, you know what? People are going to be mad anyways. So why not just take the 2 games, put it back in there and say, look, we're talking to him and nothing like this is going to happen again. Let's move on. And the quicker that you can get him back on the sideline, you know, the better that way. That could happen. I totally understand that. Like I said, you know, to me, it would be 2. And I mean, it would be 2 by the Big Ten and then 1 for that Michigan State game. He would be back for Iowa and at Ohio State for the rest of the regular season. The Big Ten tournament, yeah, and I hope they play Wisconsin for sure. And then any postseason, which you hope is the NCAA tournament, you know? Andre asking, do you think Musa and Terrence Williams will be suspended? Absolutely. There are rules about throwing punches. And you know what? Juwan, when I first saw it yesterday in regular speed, you know, it looked like a punch. I know people, and I did tweet that. And, you know, for the rest of the night, people were telling me I was stupid, you know, about but in my defense, that's what it looked like. And slowing it down and actually looking at it, I could see what I was actually looking at there. But I don't think there's any question that you saw Musa and Terrence Williams throwing punches. And yeah, those guys are going to get suspended. And yeah, that's the biggest story. Musa Diabate is Michigan's starter. Musa Diabate was awesome with the 28 points in Michigan's win at Iowa. Musa Diabate was awesome in Michigan's best game this year when they played Purdue. Now he's gone for at least, 2 games. So yeah, they're going to be gone. That's actually the biggest part of the story. One of your star players. You make the case he's their second most important player. I will. He gone. And so if you're going to suspend Juwan Howard for the rest of the season like some, and again, I think that's fair. Are you going to throw the book at the players too? Go over and above? Musa Diabate's done for the rest of the like, what are we talking about here? So some of the other things that I wanted to point out here, I've got some of these suggestions here, and it goes back to like, you know, who's at fault and all this. A lot of people, you know, are into that. You know, Michigan out on the floor down 15 with 15 seconds left. Juwan Howard was upset because Wisconsin called a timeout. You know, unfortunately, I think there's a fault on both sides here. You know, you know, calling a timeout, you know, worried about the 10-second call, you know, with the game over, you know, it's going to tick the opposing coach off. But on the other side, Juwan Howard had a full court press on. If you are not back behind the timeline, standing there with 15 seconds where you can just run the shot clock out, that is waving the white flag. You are saying it is over. If you don't do that and you have your guys in the front court, then you know what? Calling a timeout, you can actually make the argument that, okay, hey, even though I got my, even if it's walk-ons, you know, we don't want to get a turnover on a 10-second. You know, that hurts our bottom line. You know, all of these things, like you get a turnover, you know, it hurts your statistics. And if you don't have to do that, wave the white flag. So I can make an argument either way. If you're a Michigan fan and you're just on, you know, Wisconsin for calling a timeout, then, you know, I think you have to reevaluate that. A lot of people want to talk about that handshake line and how it went down. I'm just going to talk about the 2 elements at the start. And one, I have heard the audio, and there's no mistake, getting ready to walk into that handshake line, Juwan Howard says, I'll remember that crap. But I didn't say crap. So he says that, and then that's when guard puts his hands on like, hey, hold up. Juwan, let's talk. Now, I would say that I get Juwan Howard saying he's going to remember that. I have seen and heard things like this. It's not a yearly occurrence with Michigan, but it happens all the time. From the timeouts to, hey, you're putting too much pressure and you left your starter in a little bit too long. Hey, we wanted to get him this stat. Those kind of things. If you watch college basketball, happen every year. They almost happen to every program once a year, but I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but it happens multiple times a year. It's very it's a frequent occurrence. So Juwan being pissed off about it, I understand that. I think you understand that too. The part where I see a lot of Michigan fans acting like this were two guys that met in a bar and now they're outside in a backyard alley saying, you don't put your hands on another man. Like, wait a second. These guys know each other for 3 years. If you watch that video that I had the loop going on underneath, these guys are cordial. They were shaking hands. They were, touching one another's arms, a backpack, pat on the back after the game. There's no history of this guy's the son of a bitch. Get him away from me. You don't ever touch me. And we know that things were happening. But if somebody says, hey, I'm going to remember that blank, and you're like, hey, hold up. And you're talking to him, to me, that's legit. And if you can't handle at the end of a game, even in a heated situation, like, I'm not throwing a bunch of culpability. And I know it sucks for Michigan fans to hear this saying, well, you're taking the side of Wisconsin. I'm taking the side of what I see and what I know about sports and sportsmanship and coaches and how you act. Getting over there and, from there, then put your hands on it and then it goes from there. But if you're someone that's pointing to, you don't put your hands on another man, you're taking this to some kind of back alley bar type situation where somebody you didn't know, you lose me there. And then all the others still, and I get it from a lot of us, the media and fans, this is all entertainment. It's like, hey, what's the big deal? Nobody got hurt here. A little dust up. Sure, it wasn't great sportsmanship, but you know what? It's going to be great if they play again. You know what? There's a point to that. There's a point to, that part of thinking. Like, look, what's the worst thing that happened here? Let's go. Juwan's going to get suspended for a couple games. Who knows? Maybe an assistant or a player from Whiskey gets a game or two. But, it's good. It's good for bad. Even if it's not good, it fires people up. That part is unmistakable. But, this part, of people in the media that are, breaking down and circling things like, oh, and Krabenhoff. Like, look, man, I don't know how you're supposed to even have any credibility. Former player, talking about, it's Whiskey's fault. If you can't see this, and look, if you're a fan, I get it. You don't have to sit back and try to see things objectively. And, is it one of the problems with the media? I don't know if it's a problem with the media either. Half of the media, there's no, with the exception of you being a columnist, it's not like, your bosses are telling you to be objective. Hell, back when I was going to Michigan press conferences, there'd be guys covering Michigan coming in with Michigan hats on and, they might as well have Michigan pom-poms in their back pockets. But you know what? Michigan fans like those guys. Like, look, what's the problem? Go ahead, cheer for Michigan. The problem is when it comes down to things like this, and then you're looking for people to, try to give you like, hey, do you want the real information? Or people actually, they want their information slanted towards Michigan. And in this case, you know what? You put your hands on another man makes you sound like a fanboy, which is fine if that's what you want to be. But I'm not really listening to any of that. I listen to people who want to make points and talk about it. And you want to say, well, you've never been in a fight or, man to man, this is about college basketball coaches getting paid millions of dollars after the game who have had a relationship. And one of them tells, I'm not going to remember that shit. The other guy's holding him up with his hands. That's a little bit different than breaking off a bottle, and coming at somebody, or you put your hands on somebody, at a bar or something, or, acting like this guy, touched his woman or, come on. I've had enough of that over the last 20 hours. A little bit more here. Trevor, didn't appreciate you yesterday not doing your research. Howard was defending his player for getting punched. Well, Trevor, yesterday the game was 5 minutes over, 5 minutes from the buzzer. I had the video on, and I saw what I needed to see. And I stand by every single thing that I said. And it's fine, you're a fan, and you're talking about Howard defending his player. You don't defend your player by swinging at an opposing coach unless you want to be suspended or fired, Trevor. There's a bottom line to that. So that's okay. I appreciate, your fandom and you wanting to say that. Just like, here you are. You don't put your hands on me uncalled for. You know what, Trevor? That narrative, while a lot of Michigan media and a lot of other people across the board are trying to say like this is their thing for defending Juwan Howard. Yes, you do. You do it all of the time. These things happen. Is it so uncalled for to come up and say, oh, hey, hang on a minute? I mean, what, I'm not saying what planet, I almost said what planet are you from, but, people acting like this is, junior high and you're in the lunchroom, get your hand off of me. What about him? You know what? Trying to stop somebody after they say, I'm going to remember that shit, to me, is something that, and I'll just base it on not some backyard brawl. There are things that I have seen with coaches 100 times where they stop and talk and they have a relationship. If this was some tournament game and Juwan Howard had never heard of this guy, they never had any relationship, maybe you'd have a little bit more a point there. But your particular point there, Trevor, is one of the biggest problems I have with people discussing this. I think you're out of bounds. Don't put your hands on me uncalled for. Here's Trevor saying Toski broke down the whole fight on TMBR. Watch it. Yeah, he's done a fabulous job. I see thousands of people have watched that. People love the entertainment value of, hey, here's a circle. Here's somebody that's throwing a punch. Let's look at the Zapruder film. I get all of that. I love it. Like I said, I watched what I needed to see, watched it, 5-6 times. Going over and, slowing down the film and I don't need to see all that. I know what happened. And I know, I know that there's going to be some Michigan players suspended. And I know that Juwan will be. And like I said, my suggestion to Ward Manuel would be the 2+1. You don't like that? I'm all right with you not liking it. You want to call me names? You can do that too. James. Juwan, Terrence, and Musa deserve the harshest punishment. The book, I will be said if there's no consequences for Wisconsin. Well, going back, there was I haven't watched the breakdown of the Toski film like Trevor has, but I think, Trevor might indicate. I think there was a Wisconsin player where you can see a blow. Do I think that if I was the Big Ten, would I do anything for guard putting his hands on Juwan Howard? Did that escalate the situation? I wouldn't for that. The assistant coming in and trying to get once somebody touches somebody else and somebody else is breaking something up and, hey, you touched me, I touched you. I mean, is that what we're doing? That's the hard part, James. He did it. No, he did it. He did it. Well, if he never touched, you could say you're making your own point, because if you go back to the initial touch, it was guard. And like I said, I've seen that 100 times. You know what I haven't seen is something when, and you could say, well, that's a clear instigation when two people are upset. And you know what? You can have a point there. The putting a finger in somebody's face. Like, to me, that seemed kind of, it actually, even in a heated moment, hey, let's just talk this out real quick, even if we're hot. To me, that's okay. Getting in and pointing somebody's finger in somebody's face. You know what? You're asking for assistants and players then to join. Now, that's my perception of it. If, you know what? And everybody can have their own opinion about it. And James, if your opinion is that, Wisconsin, their coach, their assistant, and their players all deserve, suspensions and fines, I think that's okay. Like I said, I don't know, in the regular course of a game, whether you're doing the unwritten rules or not, I think there's blame on both sides. Guard initially touching him, that's not a, to me, any kind of suspension or fine. Or you could say, he shouldn't have done it because it ended up, being the spark that, blew this whole thing up, and there was no going back after that. To me, there was no going back when Juwan started poking his finger in, guard's face. But again, that's me. And you could, and it does sound like it's pro Wisconsin. I get that, because I'm saying that Juwan started it, and Juwan's the one that swung. Now the players from both sides swung there. So, if anybody's making a fist or picking a swinging motion, then I know, like, Krabenhoff, he looks like he punched the, trying to separate. Those things are hard to determine. They really are. Come on, bro. One of the coach headbutted Williams. Yeah. Well, you know what? Now, Trevor, that you've indicated that, I guess I'll have to go back and watch the slowed down version. You got me. I didn't see any headbutt of Williams. So, Trevor, for you, I will get back there at some point, and I'll watch and I'll report back if I did see that headbutt. We got more comments coming in here before we continue on. Maybe somebody else saw the headbutt too. And this is not the first time Howard has lost his mind, and he's been getting a lot of texts lately too. Well, you know what? CJ, let's get to this part that gets to the now what. This was not a one-time deal. I'll go back to Juwan Howard's first year at Michigan State. I remember watching that game, and at some point during the game, Juwan Howard ran out onto the floor. Not a foot out of the floor. He ran out of the floor. I don't know if he was in the key or not, and he made contact with the referee or got into his face. And I thought, for the split second, Juwan Howard, oh my God, he's lost his mind. He's out on the floor. He's going to get kicked out. This is an embarrassing situation. He got the tech. He was mad. They cut to him on the sideline 5 seconds after that, and he was cool as a cucumber. And I thought, you know what? This is Juwan Howard. He wanted to make sure that he was going to get the tech. Getting a tech as a head coach, it's strategy. And what I saw, well, you could say, hey, running out on the floor, it was ridiculous. He did it. It was calculated. And while he looked hot, like he had lost his mind, 1 second later, you could tell it was strategic. So while my first inclination was, oh my God, I saw what he was doing there. Last year at the Big Ten tournament, whatever said, I don't know if Turgeon, the head coach of Maryland, said, hey, how about those banners? You didn't get no banners, or whatever set Juwan Howard off. And what Juwan said, I'm from the South Side, and, I'm going to stand up. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but we remember what happened. He was running around the floor. This was not like yelling from the coach's box and having to be restrained. This was Juwan Howard circling around. He looked like beef stew when LeBron hit him a couple months ago. That's what Juwan was doing last year, where he had to be like, he almost got free. And it wasn't swept under the rug. But remember, Michigan had won the Big Ten tournament, or won the regular season. And, it was just shouting. And it was like, okay. But what I remember about after, that is, like, I remember saying, look, I've never seen a coach running around the floor like that. If Juwan Howard coaches 5, 10, 20 years, he'll never be able to do that again. You can't run around on the floor. So it was really, for Juwan, it was, hey, it happened, and there was no harm, no foul. And guess what, man? You were really lucky. Juwan Howard got lucky last year that nothing happened and nothing came of that. So yeah, now you have a coach, and look I have never seen in college basketball history a coach run around like Juwan Howard did last year and have to be restrained at the end of a game. Maybe to go after a ref because you're pissed off, but never an opposing coach. Never once have seen that in the history of college basketball. And you know what? Yesterday, inside of a year now, I have never seen an opposing coach do what Juwan Howard, the head coach. I've seen plenty of players. I know assistants and everything else. You're the calm hand at the wheel. Reaching out, swatting at somebody, taking a swing, however you want to put that. I wasn't a punch. Fine. I've never seen it. It was unprecedented. 2 times in less than 1 year. And everybody's like, okay, we've heard all of that. All right. You're right. But like when I get back, that is all true. And what I'm saying is that accepting a 2 to 3 to rest of the season suspension, if you're a Michigan fan, you should just say, you know what? It's deserving. That's the way I'm looking at it. Like I said, if you're just tuning in, I think, 3 games is what it should be. It might be happening because I've got my phone going off. I got an insider, sending me a message. A check here just to see if that suspension has come down. Nothing as of yet, at least that I see here. And go ahead and just take a peek here. Here. Okay. And that's it. So you got those next 4 home games. Like I said, I would have Michigan. You take those 2 games against Rutgers and Illinois. I would have Juwan back for the Iowa game. The one thing, CJ, when Juwan after the game, he was unapologetic. And I think that what I would guess is that, he's going to have to be apologetic when he, especially, I don't know how to say especially, but if he gets like where you say gets off lightly with just the 2 or 3 games, which I think is what it's going to be, I think he should be apologetic. And, the emotions got the best of him, and that's not to try, the kind of coach he's going to be. He ran out the family line for his players. Like, what about the players that were throwing punches? And, now you're going to lose them. He's like, there's a part about it, like we're a family. And that's the part where it gets you. Because you know what? If you're a Michigan fan, you feel like you're part of the family. Certainly if you're alum or you're, you've been a lifelong Michigan fan and you've got your coach saying, you know what? Yeah, this is our family. And you know what? You see guys, this is terrible. It's a terrible analogy that I was going to use it. Like you see guys that go to jail and, get caught red-handed and everything. What do they always say? The parents are like, hey, you didn't do it. We're totally with them. And so this is what's going on with the media and is going on with the fans. Like you saw it right there, unmistakable video. And then you still got, 75% of the Michigan fans. You got guys like, Desmond Howard, like, he actually put his hands on it. There's nothing going, this is all Whiskey's fault. And it's like, okay, but that's what happens. And you know what? When you're a fan and the coach is talking about family and you're an alum, you're somebody like Desmond Howard, none of the things like what's really, factual or really trying to be objective. You don't have to do that. He never has. A lot of people never have, and it's worked out great for him. So, and a lot of people, they like it like that. It's kind of like, when you're turning into CNN or you're turning into Fox, there's certain things you expect. Like, and you need to declare for one side or the other because you know what? Everybody else is declaring. So it's gone that way. It gets that way more and more. I don't see that there's any turnaround. I'll get to some more of your feedback that is coming in. I'll just, like I said, what I would do if I was Ward Manuel, Big Ten's going to give the 2-game max suspension and the $10,000 fine. I would add that Michigan State game and an anger management course. And the thing about the anger management course, I've never taken an anger management course. And you might say, you know what? That's uncalled for. Why did you have to take an anger management course? Moving forward, like the one thing that I am sure of is that the Juwan Howard running out onto the floor, even if it's like an innocent, like, hey, let me help the kid mop the floor, Ooh, I didn't know that there was a live ball, so I'm grabbing it. Let me get out on the floor to like it or not, Juwan Howard is known as the most hot-headed college basketball coach, certainly currently, maybe all time, that's ever coached a game of college basketball. That's his reputation, and that's going to follow him. Now, you get some time where you get a year or two under your belt, and you don't have any instances, and you're able to put that behind you as that becomes smaller and smaller. It does. But for the time being, Juwan Howard is this hot-headed coach that you can get under his skin, call a timeout late, make a hard foul, put a little remark at him in the any of that. Hell, coach will fly off the handle. Like it or not, you need to admit that. And it's the part about, like with Michigan, you say, oh, is it really going to be damaging? It certainly could be. Losing your head coach for any amount of time when you're a team that's fighting, to get into the NCAA tournament. I'll let you in on something. Like right now, I know Steve Lapis was like, Michigan's in. They only need one out of their next 5 games, and they're guaranteed to get in. I don't believe that. I don't even believe they're a guarantee if they win 2. I think they need to win 3 out of the next 5 to feel really good about it. Now, they've got their brand on there, but you know what? If Michigan doesn't make the tournament, you think Michigan fans are just going to be like, oh, well, hey, a team really wasn't able to shoot, and we'll just go back and we'll get them next year. No, that's not going to be the narrative. The narrative is going to be that Juwan Howard cost this team, who was in the tournament, a chance to play in the NCAA tournament because he let his emotions get the best of him, and his players got thrown out of the game. His second-best player got thrown out of the game. This team went down the tubes, and he's to blame for not getting in. And you know what? How are you going to argue with that if Michigan doesn't make the tournament? You can't. So he's put himself into that situation. All right, let's get through some of these other ones here. Wisconsin coach was going for a handshake with an elbow grab. I don't know. Here's somebody talking about, I haven't watched the breakdown. I answered that. I did listen to the audio, so I got that part. Here he is. Toski broke down every frame. That's good. That is on the Maize and Blue review. Toski, if you want the every second, I know you spent a long time breaking down and going frame by frame. I'm good with that. Here's Trevor telling me that Williams got punched first. What are you watching? Yeah, look, you might be right about that, Trevor. Like I said, I don't know about the head putt. I don't know about, but what I do know is, like, here's what I know, Trevor. If you're playing for Michigan and I'm playing for Wisconsin and I throw a punch at you and you throw one back at me, the Big Ten doesn't look like, oh, well, you know what, Trevor, was just retaliating because, the Fithian threw the punch first. No, we're both. Neither. It doesn't matter. You can't throw a punch. So that's what I'm talking about. CJ says this really hurts the team. They are now 14-11 and squarely on the bubble with 4 home games coming up and likely missing 2 key players and the head coach. It's inexcusable on Juwan's part. Yeah, CJ, I think that we can all agree that it's there's no excuse for it. And whatever the suspension is going to be, I'm not going to complain about it. Like I said, I think it's going to be shorter rather than longer because you're protecting Michigan, and Michigan's the one that's making the, giving the discipline out. And it's going to be really easy to say, hey, the Big Ten gave us the discipline and we're going to stand by it. And you could say a bunch of other things. You could talk about maybe anger management. You can talk about, having, closed door meetings and all those kind of things. And, that you can make a promise that it's never going to happen again. And then you're on. You're moving on. Trevor wants me to watch the break. Like I said, Trevor, I'm a little bit behind the feedback. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it for you. Maybe I'll be back here tomorrow and I'll be singing a completely different tune and I'll say, you know what? Trevor had it right. Once I watched the Toski film, I think that the parts about who was reaching out and touching who, and let's have a circle over here. I get that's very entertaining for people, but once I'm not going to stand for that shit came out, or no, I'm sorry, I'm going to remember that crap. And then there was the hold up by the Wisconsin coach, and then an immediate, no, you hold up by Juwan. I don't need to really go any further than that. But I will, Trevor, because you want me to see the headbutts and who threw the punches first. And so I'll do it. Here somebody wants me to subscribe to their channel. It is a basketball channel. That's good. Trevor with I'll let you get two more. I don't know how many more Trevor comments I have. He says, you got to be kidding me. You have not watched Bob Knight. He head-butted players, swung on coaches, yelled at coaches and referees, and so on. Not condoning it, but it happens. Howard's not the first to get upset. Yeah, well, I don't know how old you are, Trevor, but, I'm old enough. I don't remember Bob Knight when he was back at Army, but, 70s, 80s Bob Knight, I was there for that. I think he choked. I don't remember the headbutt that you're talking about. I know that he choked the player, Neil Reed, in practice, and there ended up being some tape of that. I know he threw potted plants in the office at secretaries. Those were some of the charges against him. I did see the Neil Reed actual video. He did. I don't know if did he raise his hand at one of his own players but I don't know if the general ever took a swipe at an opposing coach. And I knew he threw a chair when he was pissed off at the referee, but I don't know. You yelling at a referee. I mean, I see that every game. Within the first minute, I see that. This is none of this. Like I said, I've never seen Juwan Howard, and if the only guy that we're talking about, is the the biggest hot-headed jerk of all time, and full disclosure, back in the day, I liked Bob Knight, but you know what? He was he had anger issues, and he was demeaning to people that were underneath him, and for that, he was a jerk. I don't want Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard that's not Juwan Howard. I'm putting Juwan into the category of Bob Knight. Well, this guy really wants me to subscribe to his basketball channel. Trevor doesn't like the anger management. Yeah, like I said, I mean, like is that so much? Like, well, oh boy, Well, you know what? He was never a head coach, Trevor, in the NBA, and I don't know. There's fights and stuff that goes on. This isn't professional basketball. Juwan's the modern day Bob Knight. Well, maybe that's where we're at. Well, maybe I shouldn't say I don't know. I do know, Trevor. I've watched it. I gave you my opinion on it. And there you go. All right. Thanks for watching. Like I said, I think that it's going to be a short suspension because Michigan is going to protect their brand. And in the end, it's a business. Is it Ward Manuel's job to send a message to sportsmanship and to college basketball by banning his coach for the rest of the year so that everybody can use this against Michigan, all off season. And when they don't make the tournament, you can say, yes, that's actually what's supposed to happen, which, again, I think you can make the argument for that. But for me, I'll be I think any of the suspensions are warranted. And yet, if it was me, my recommendation would be the 2 games this week, Rutgers and Illinois, and then I would suspend them for the Michigan State game. That's how I would do it. I'm going to watch the breakdown. For Trevor, I'll talk with you tomorrow. here at 1 o'clock. Everybody have a great day.